In today's video, I will be answering the question, is Daz Studio good for creating comics or graphic novels? And I will use my experience of my own graphic novel, Tiger Dragon Rebirth, to help you to answer this question, to guide you so you can make an informed decision whether Daz Studio is the right tool for you to create your comic or graphic novel. So as I was perusing the YouTube comments for my channel, this question sprang into mind, this comment rather sprang into mind, and this comment was left by Chariots8x, username Chariots8x. And the question is basically, is Daz Studio good for creating comics or graphic novels? And then they go in a bit more detail in terms of what they're looking for, what Daz Studio needs to do in order for them to use it to create a comic or graphic novel. Now I thought this would make a fantastic YouTube video, which I'm going to do. This is the YouTube video. We're going to be going over this. So we're going to be going over these particular questions or these scenarios to try and give you some more insights on what it actually looks like, what things you will need to buy, what things you may need to buy, and all these other things, because it's very, very important to cover all these elements. And this is what this person's particularly looking for. Now, the stories that I create, not all of these things are really required currently for me, right? But I can go into those because I do have experience of it. So that's why I'm going to be doing this YouTube tutorial, is helping you, or rather guiding you to show you how you can use Daz Studio to create your comic or graphic novel. Because I have actually created, folks, a graphic novel. It was no small feat. It took nearly like a year and a half to create. But it was done, right? And that's the most important thing. The most important thing is you create your story and you finish it. That's the most important thing. You don't want to be one of these people who start something and don't complete something. That's not how you create what you want to create. You've got to complete whatever you start. Very, very important part of the mindset, which we will discuss later in this YouTube video. So let's crack on to the first question, which is, this person here, Chariots8x, says the first thing it needs to be able to do, Daz Studio, is pose 3D models quickly and produce natural looking poses. All right, so let's look at that right now. So in terms of posing 3D models quickly, there are preset poses which you can buy, which will give you like the base pose. Okay, so if we go into, I just want to show you where those poses are. So if we go to the shop, first of all, the Daz 3D store shop, and we go to animation and poses here, and you've got the different poses, right? The different kind of like poses, combat and fighting poses, expressions. Okay, so combat and fighting poses, click on that, and then you've got like a ton of combat and fighting poses for particular characters. These can also be used for any character, really. Just because it says here these are for this character here, for example, that doesn't mean it's just for this character. Okay, you can use this for any character, any Genesis 8 or 8.1 character. Okay, so very important to realize. They will require adjustments though, so you know, there may be like the limbs may be slightly off or something, but that's something you will need to consider, right? Whatever poses you buy, they're not going to be 100% accurate for those characters. You're going to have to manually adjust the limbs to do those poses. So you can buy these poses, yeah, no problem. So poses, that's like quickly. So in terms of quickly, you can have these preset poses to use. There's lots and lots of vendors. Really go have a look. I'm not going to recommend too many products. There's only a few products I will recommend for each section, because these are the ones I've used that will give you the best bang for buck. So that's in terms of quick poses, you would do that. So what does that look like in terms of Daz Studio? When you go into Daz Studio, I have my character here, Michael 8.1, and let me just, right, Michael 8.1, and then when I go to my smart content tab here, expand that, and then go to poses and expand that, you can see, expand that again by function, and you can see the different categories. Okay, so I've got action poses for Michael 8.1. These are Genesis 8 poses, will work on Genesis 8.1 characters. Okay, and these actual poses will work on female characters. Okay, as well, just because these are for males, you can actually get female version. You can actually use these poses for female characters as well. So I mean, for example, if we just like go through and say, well, hey, I want like an action scene here. Let me just go to something like, I don't know, he's jumping over here, right? You just double click and that's your quick pose. Okay, might take a while, just give it a second. There you go, right? There's the pose, right? So obviously it's going to need adjusting depending on whatever you got in your scene. Obviously there's nothing here in the scene at the moment. That's just the pose. Okay, so it doesn't take into consideration the clothing. Say if the clothing's draping D-force, right? I'm not too sure this is D-force clothing. But either way, also the expression is not there. Okay, so in terms of quick posing, this is great for quick posing. This is what, if this is what you're looking for, quick posing, right? These are going to help you. So what I mean by, you may want to change the leg here, right? So you may want to be like, you know what? His leg should be there a bit more. This back leg should probably be something like that, right? Looks more cooler. I don't know, right? So this is like your base pose, and you will adjust the limbs from there for things to look the way you want it to look for your specific character. The other one I really want to talk about in terms of, which was the next kind of section of that question, which was produce natural looking poses. Now, the problem with 3D is Daz Studio, any kind of 3D, is to create natural looking poses requires your understanding that when you are walking in real life and when you are doing certain movements, your body is in a constant state of balance. All right, gravity is always fighting on that, and you are fighting against gravity. Now we can't show that inside Daz Studio, right? Daz Studio doesn't understand gravity, okay, in terms of your character and how it affects the pose. That's where we need to look at products that are going to help us. Now, this product I highly recommend because I use this a lot, especially into the second edition of Tiger Dragon the Rebirth, to get that much more better posing. I'm going to show you that product now regarding natural looking poses. So if we go here, it's called Pose Architect. I highly recommend this. This is a Genesis 8 male version. Here is the female version as well. All right, and they both do the same thing. So if we click here, you will see, if we take this for example, the balance. Okay, see how the way the body has moved certain limbs and the way the leg has moved over here, right, to make sure you don't fall over. Okay, that's what it's all about. Natural looking poses. Natural looking poses implies that you understand the gravity effects on a person's body and therefore how it will look, and that all comes with practice, really. It's not something you will see straight away. It took me a very, very long time. Even now I still struggle with it, but you will get better the more you look at like proper drawings, traditional drawings from traditional artists. Once you start looking at it, especially when you look at comic books and you look at the way they draw it, and you start to understand, like, oh, the reason why the legs of that character is there and the leg is there, because if it wasn't there, they'd fall over, right? It's to do with the gravity and how gravity affects your body. So you can see here, right? I mean, this is going into a bit more of the kind of like specifics in terms of the different lines and everything for things to be balanced, natural looking. Okay, as you can see here, this is really, really important. These are just like examples, so I'm going to show you a great example in a second. So let me just go to Daz Studio and show you this. So Michael 8, I want to show you Michael 8 because I want to show you that this actually works on Genesis 8.1 characters. So if I go to parameters, expand that, expand pose controls, and there's this one here, 3DU pose architect. Expand that, and then you can see you've got different sections. You've got arms, hands, head, hips, legs, and torso. So this is really, really great. So to the torso, you know, I'll just take a very quick example. Torso twist left and right, so we can twist our body, right? Okay, so as you can see that twist there? Now it's a bit extreme, but you can see now, I've done that one slider there, and it's moved a lot of things, right? It's let me just bring that down a bit so you can see. There you go, right? So it's twisted my character, but it's also twisted the legs as well. You can see it looks much more natural looking pose, like the person is turning around to look to the other side. Now obviously that this pose is not complete, you will need to turn the head, etc., which you can do from here if you wanted to, right? Okay, see how the neck moves here and the shoulder goes up to compensate for that. That's what happens in real life. When you do it, your body will want to balance itself out. Otherwise, it will, like your neck, your head would fall off your neck, right? It's in a constant state of balance, right? Everything, our body's in a constant state of balance. There you go, right? So this is really, really great. I used it a lot in the second edition of Tiger Dragon Rebirth. Very helpful to create those realistic poses and natural looking poses as well. And this is just to show you that this works on Genesis 8.1. This is Michael 8.1. So just to show you that does work. And I want to show you a great example of that is in this this scene here, right? I use this in this scene here. Okay, I've got my character here. She's in a very dynamic pose here, and she's like moving towards something, right? As you can see with the hair flowing there, and it's creating that movement. And then we've got the kind of like blur effect here to kind of show you the movement that she's transitioning. She's trying to get to somewhere pretty quick. This is actually used using the 3D the Pose Architect add-on. So highly recommend that in terms of natural looking poses. It is something recommended. Right, so moving on to number 2, question 2 or segment 2. Daz Studio needs to be able to do these things, and that is to create facial expressions. So yes, Daz Studio, you can create facial expressions. There are some free ones that come with Daz Studio. I'll show you them very shortly, but they're not enough, right? You're gonna need to purchase more, or you could create your own expressions. It's gonna take longer for you to create your own expressions, but if you want to have like a base, something to help you, then you're gonna have to pay for it, right? You're gonna have to pay for the expressions, and that's just part of the Daz Studio ecosystem. So let's show you the free ones, or what they look like, so you can see what they look like. So let's go to that Daz Studio. So for Michael 8.1, when I go to parameters and I go down here, let's just go from the top so you can see what it looks like. Michael 1, right? I expand him. I go to pose control, I expand that. Click on head here, expand that, and then we got expressions, right? I've got 2 here. So expressions, this is Genesis 8 male characters only. All right, and then this is expressions 8.1, which is Genesis 8.1 male character expressions only. Okay, so we got 2 categories now. All right, so here we have these here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are the free ones, right? The default expressions that come with Daz Studio, right? If you didn't buy anything else and you just had a Genesis 8.1 character, these are the ones you would only have access to. Okay. And these are the free ones, and you can tell that by the colors. All right, if you look at the color of this this particular like parameter here, you can see that color. So anywhere you see this kind of color, that is the default one. All right, that's what the Daz Studio normally comes with. So this is a different color. Obviously, I paid for this, so this is what came with this particular. Now I don't have many expressions for 8.1 because I don't use 8.1 a lot, and I tell you why I don't use it shortly. But so you would just do the dials, right? Okay. Now, obviously, you don't want to go crazy with the dials. Biggest mistake I made was just whacking all the dials to 100, right? Because you're a beginner, you don't know any better, right? You're a beginner, a newbie, you don't know. So you just whack everything up to 100. And then you realize as you mature, as you start to, get better at your craft, you're like, actually, I don't need to whack it up to really high. I just need to do it enough to create that emotive response, that when I, as the creator, look at this character, am I getting that emotive response from this expression? If I am, then chances are other people who look at this character will get that same emotive response, because we're all human and we're going to see certain facial expressions as the same, right? Because it's something we've been naturally attuned to. It's something we've got that we're born with, actually, like almost like default programming that we have in order to understand how people are feeling and their facial expressions, how we can read if someone's dangerous or is someone friendly, right? So there you go. All right, so that is the free stuff there. Fantastic. And then obviously here, Genesis 8, I've got loads here, right, for Genesis 8 male characters, because I just use those really. So that's fine. In terms of purchasing the expressions, yes, Daz 3D Store is your best friend. So in the Daz 3D Store, we're going to go to animation and poses section here, and then expressions, okay? And there's loads and loads of expressions for Genesis 8 characters and Genesis 8.1 characters, female and male, right? You decide what you want to purchase, what you're looking for, what kind of poses you're looking for. That's up to you. I'm not going to recommend anything really. One of the things you do need to know though is if we take this for example, Little Fighter expressions for Genesis 8.1 male and Caden HD 8.1. This expression is actually created for Caden, but that doesn't mean it can be still used, right, for Genesis 8.1 characters, any 8.1 characters, okay? So don't be concerned about that. Obviously these will not work on Genesis 8 male characters, right? They will just not work. They won't be available. All right, so that's something to consider as well, which is probably why I haven't really moved along, because that means I need to go purchase more expressions. Don't really want to do that anymore. So another quick point before we move on is the more expressions you have, right? So if you look at this expressions for Genesis 8 male characters, there's a lot here, okay? Now what Daz Studio will do is, because I've got so many, every time I load a male character, it will take a very long time to load, because it will load all of these expressions, all right? Because it's the way Daz Studio is created is it thinks you're going to use all of these, right? And it doesn't like load them bit by bit. It loads everything to do with that character, and therefore I highly recommend you don't go and purchase loads of expressions, because it's going to take longer for your character to load in a scene, or just generally any character, if you've got loads of expressions, because the way it actually loads everything, it's not great for that. So that's something to be mindful of when you are purchasing expressions. Don't go crazy like I did. And finally, I just want to show you two products that I highly recommend are these here, which is Auto Face Enhancer for Genesis 8 female and Auto Face Enhancer for the male as well. And really, really great products these are, because it gives you these really expressions that are a bit more realistic as well. Again, I'll show you this very quickly. So if you go to the Daz Studio for Michael 8 here, 8.1, Auto Face Enhancer, here it is, right? If I go to head, Auto Face Enhancer, these are the dials. These are slightly different, and you can see, right, they're very very powerful poses. So I use this quite a bit as well for my characters, for both my male and female characters. It just makes it more realistic. Like you can have, like, you see the wrinkles and things, right? It looks a bit more realistic. Let's do an iRay preview so you can see what it looks like. I'm not too sure how good, it depends on the lighting as well, folks. So obviously this preview might look rubbish. There's no lighting. Well, really bad lighting here. But as you can see here, right, it looks a bit more, realistic in terms of we've got the wrinkles and everything, and that's what that Auto Face Enhancer adds. So something to look into if you wish to have a bit more of that realism in your expressions. So that's something I would recommend as a product if you want to go purchase the product. Again, if you do purchase any of these products, I don't make any money, right? It's just something I use and I find it very, very great. So really, really quickly, I want to show you like here's an expression here, okay? Now, very subtle expression here, okay? Very subtle features and things. But if you have a look at this expression, you can see that the person is worried, right? Something's going on. Right, and you can see there's not much to this expression, right? I think there's not many dials to this expression at all, but they're very subtle changes now. Just by looking at this, you can just tell, right? This person is in some sort of like worry or angst or something, right? And that's all it requires. You don't need to go crazy. You just need to, you understand how expressions work, right? You have this intuitiveness. We all do. Just apply that and everything will be fine, right? There's not much to expressions. Just don't go overbearing with the expressions. Alright, so moving on to number 3, which is Daz Studio needs to be able to do these things. Number 3, set up scenes quickly. There's that word quickly again. Right. So set up scenes quickly. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that look like? So in terms of scenes, really you've got like 2 options, and the options are probably going to be to either purchase these scenes, right? So in the Daz 3D store, you've got different things you can buy, right? Different sets you can buy, okay, from different categories, different genres. So you can change the genres here. There's loads, right? There are many different ones now. So you can purchase these very like small scenes, and you can purchase like larger scenes as well. Like here, okay, there's loads and loads. I'm not going to go through all of them. There are many, right? You can spend hours. And you can spend a lot of money purchasing scenes. So in terms of setting up scenes quickly, that really depends on what your story is about, and whether that particular genre of that scene is available. And if it's not available, then you're going to have to use kit bashing, okay? Kit bashing, I discussed this in my other tutorial. I'll put the link here on the top right here, just for you guys to go look at that. It's very important skill. It's going to set you apart from just everybody else, because most people won't do kit bashing, because A, it's laborious, and B, the people that actually do the kit bashing, they're going to be further ahead along their journey, right? They're going to be doing better things. It's simple, right? They are actually committed to mastery, all right? It is one of the skills that you need to learn to create unique things, right? Because this is how you create something unique in your story. You can't be using these props as they are. You can use specific elements of the prop, but I highly recommend don't using everything of the prop, or using very clever ways to hide a particular prop, right? So that's a particular prop you're using, or a particular set. There are clever ways to hide it so people don't know where that set is from. All right, there's always ways to do that, and that's the whole point of discovery and getting better at your craft. Okay, so like I said, there are a lot of scenes here. You can just add them in, and then you can edit it and edit the scenes and remove things. Again, the kit bashing part 2, I think it is, goes into that a lot in terms of setting scenes up. One thing I would say is save your scenes as a scene subset. So once you set your scene up, so for example, if I show you this here, right, this outside of the Club Tora here, this is I saved this as a scene subset inside Daz Studio, and what that means is I can just load it whenever, right? It's always there. I don't need to do anything. Obviously these people are not there, but the scene is, the lighting and everything is the way it is. Nothing's changed apart from that, apart from the people aren't there, right, in that scene subset. So I can load that scene up if I need to. So whenever the next story comes out, or if we go back to Club Tora, then that scene's there already, okay? And that's one of the things I highly recommend, is you save it as a scene subset, and you can load it whenever and reuse it again and again and again. So that's all there is to that one in terms of setting up scenes quickly. That word quickly I don't really like, because when someone says I want something done quickly, that means they want something done fast. And when you want something done fast, it's not always done correctly, and you're very likely to make mistakes. When someone says they want something done quickly, you're gonna make mistakes when you do things quickly, right? Tell me a time when you've done something fast that you never made a mistake. Very rarely, right? Very rarely. So it is a case of quickly to me is like a bad word. Not a bad word, is not a great word. I would say you want a scene set up that is adequate for your story. All right, that's a better phrase. You want scenes that are adequate for your story. That's a better phrase than to say I want it set up quickly. I want a scene that's adequate for my story. Okay, so that's what you should be looking towards rephrase that question number 3. Set up scenes quickly. No, set up scenes that are adequate for your story. That's a better frame, mindset frame of reference for you to actually think about when you're looking at scenes to purchase. So moving on to number 4, which is a 3D program needs to be used for making comics, graphic novels. It needs to be able to do these things. Number 4, create dynamic elements such as flowing hair due to movement. For example, a moving scarf on a windy day, etc., etc. So yes, you can do this with Daz Studio. It is something called the D-Force, which is very prevalent, prominent with everything to do with Daz Studio now. D-Force has become a staple in terms of clothing, in terms of hair, right? It's all, majority, anything you see anything that you buy now is going to have some form of D-Force on it, clothing-wise or on hair-wise. So that's become a major part of Daz Studio, which is going to allow you to create the flowing hair. So let's look at flowing hair first. Let's break it down to sections. So flowing hair, there are 2 ways. So the first one is D-Force. So let me just hide my character here, right? Let me give him back Mike here. Michael 8. Here he is, right? This is D-Force hair that I've applied to my character. Alright, and D-Force is very easy to use. It's not complicated whatsoever. This is my D-Force here. In my simulation settings, I haven't done anything in my settings and I just do simulate, right? And it's going to simulate the hair for my character. There it is, right? D-Force. Very easy, very straightforward to use. This is like the basics of using D-Force. Now, obviously, if you want to create like wind or anything, so currently my gravity is set to 1. If I did -1, right? Now gravity is going the other way. Okay, now my hair is going to go up. Okay, right. So you can play with gravity like that in terms of D-Force. You can also use like a wind node. So a wind node, so that would be I'll put a link here. I've already covered wind nodes here, so I'll put the link in the top right, but just to show you where it is, you got to create a new D-Force wind node, accept, okay, and then you will see it. This is the wind node here, okay, and then you will need to position that right where you want it. So where do you want the wind to come from? The direction, okay? You can choose the direction, whether you want it to come from the right, the top, up, down. So let's say if I rotated this very quickly like this, just very quickly, it doesn't need to be perfect, right? Something like that. And then you can set the power, like strength, diameter, fall off, all these things, right, are all covered in that tutorial, which I'll put in the top right here in that card. And then all you would do, right, is you would just hit simulate. There you go, right? And now the hair is flying all over the place. Now obviously the strength is far too high, it's 10, but this is just showing you like how you would do it, okay? Very basics, very basics into how you would create that. And that would also apply to any clothing. So let's say, for example, if none of this clothing is D-Force, unfortunately, but if you were happy with that, what you would do now, say, hey, I'm happy with that hair, but I want to change, I want to keep the hair as it is, but I don't want to when I do my simulation again, I don't want to make sure the hair don't move. So you would just literally go to your hair here, which is this here, Grayson hair, right? And then you would go to the D-Force settings. So if you type here, you type in freeze, and for the Grayson hair, this hair here, it will freeze, right? Turn that on. Now that simulation is frozen, okay? It will not. So if I hit simulate here, this won't change, right? Nothing will happen, okay? because we've frozen that, and now we can say, hey, okay, let me go move on to the clothing, the default clothing, to get that effect that I want. That's a great way to isolate it, right? So isolate a particular, like, hey, I'm happy with the hair, but I'm not happy with the clothing. So I'm going to freeze that simulation for the hair, and so I can work on the clothing. All right, that's a great way to isolate things. Okay, so that's deforce there, so we can delete that. Now the other way you can move hair and clothing is something called morphs. So if we just go here, right, so this when I was trying to set up my graphic novel, my main character, right, I knew I needed dynamic hair, and so this was the hair I chose because it's got a lot of dials, right, a lot of morphs that allows me to create that movement of dynamic movement, all right, that you're asking for. So when we expand this actor blow dials here, right, so I've got a lot of dials here, which gives me the freedom to move it, right? It gives me the freedom to give me the effect I want for the hair, right, to give that kind of movement. So even just moving the hair like this, it gives this, even this render, right, if this was a render, it gives that move, that kind of like you're looking at this render and you can see there's some sort of wind movement or some sort of dynamicness to this render or to this scene here. And that's just by moving the dials, the morphs of this hair. So that's something to consider when you are looking at your characters, is consider the hair, right? Does it have the dials, the blow dials, the morphing ability that you require in order for you to create that part of the scene? So this is something you need to take into consideration, right? The clothing, the hair, in terms of getting that that kind of the dynamic elements that you're looking for, right? It's very, very important. So let's move on to number 5, which is create a frozen frame of dynamic movement. For example, I like to take an animation of an action scene and freeze it in midair to get the frame that I'm looking for. I want to know how to pause an action pose in order to get a specific frame, showing the hair blowing in the wind and clothes flowing freely due to the character's movement. So we've kind of covered the kind of frozen part in terms of freezing a section in previously regarding dynamic movement. However, what I think you're asking for is actually using animations. Now, animation is not my strong point, I will say it right now. It's not something I recommend inside Daz Studio because animation is not the best thing inside Daz Studio. Even though Daz Studio tries to be like Blender, it is not Blender. Or it is not any other software, right? Daz Studio's, in terms of its timeline, it needs great improvement and how to use that effectively for animation. It really does need to be better. So in terms of animations, I don't recommend it. What I do recommend is to really isolate it the way I showed you in terms of number 4, when we looked at the elements, the dynamic elements. I mean, obviously inside the Daz Studio store, there are like animations you can buy, right? There are animations here that you can buy. I've never used them, right? Because I don't recommend them. I mean, personally, I don't recommend animations whatsoever. They take a very long time to render, especially if you're going to use like iRay or something. It's going to take a very long time. That's up to you. I don't really use animations whatsoever. What I do know is that a lot of people do take the characters using the bridges. You can take the characters from Daz Studio into Blender or the other, I think there's Cinema 4D, and there's a few other softwares that allow you, few other softwares that the Daz Bridge allows you to take it into your characters into those software, right? Right, that is not my area of expertise again, but like I said, you know, when you're thinking about dynamic poses, you've really got to you know, the best way to do it is to look at the comics, right? Look at comics that have dynamic movements, right? Spider-Man is a very dynamic character. The way he moves, he does not move like anybody else, right? There's very uniqueness to him, right? The way he web swings through the air and everything, right? So just think about how the body works, and if you are running in a particular direction and you've got long hair, right? Your hair is going to move in the opposite direction. It's kind of like just thinking about the basics of physics and how that works, and really do that. That's the best way, is to look at other people's work, look at traditional artwork and see what they're doing, and then that's a great way for you to figure out dynamic movement. At the beginning it's very difficult, but after a while you start doing it, you start to do it naturally, right? It just comes to you. You're like, oh, if my character puts my foot there and the wind is blowing from that direction, then the hair is going to move in the other direction, right? And all this is going to happen. You start thinking about these things and it becomes second nature. So it's a case of, animations not great inside Daz Studio. Yes, take it into Blender or some other one of the other softwares that you can take it into, right? Using the bridges that are available. The bridges are free. This is not my area of expertise, so if there is someone who wants to help out with that, link, put that in the comments down below. If you know a video that can help with number 5 here, then put the link down below. That's fine. Please help this person out, or you're helping other people out, right, to create what they need to create. So that's as much as I'm going to say about number 5. I don't really have much expertise in terms of that or experience with animations. So moving on to number 6 now, which is create outdoor scenes under different weather conditions. Great question. Yes, you can do that, of course. Again, it's up to your own creativity, right? Your creativity, figuring things out, discovery, that's what it's all about. And what you're going to be doing at the beginning is looking at props, all right? So you're going to be going to the Daz 3D store or maybe another store, right? I'm just showing you Daz 3D store here, and you've got different outdoor scenes here, right? Different ones, like a huge variety of scenes here. Whatever fits your story, very likely it is here. And then obviously with that wonderful skill of kit bashing, you can mix and match things, right? So for example, I could take something like this and take something like this and mix it together to create something new. That's what kit bashing is, right? That's basically what kit bashing is, all right? It's taking 2 or 3 things, mixing it all together and coming out with something new. That's all it is, folks. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. It just requires practice, okay? You can do this, right? You can do this. So let's look at that. That's fine. Obviously, let's say something like this here. You want something frozen, right? Here it is, right? There's a great prop here for you to use, like a frozen section in winter or something, to give that emphasis that it's cold now, right? Or there's some sort of icy place, or like in the Antarctic. There's loads and loads of different ones. I'm not going to go through all of them, otherwise this tutorial is going to be long enough than it already is. I mean, even here, I'll show you this here, right? This is a like the final climactic scene that I created. I kit bashed myself, right? I created this all myself, meaning I took parts from different sections, different props I had, buildings, and put them all together to create this like final scene, so to speak. This final render where the main part of the story finishes in Tiger Dragon the Rebirth, right? This is the climactic scene, so to speak. So obviously it's a nighttime scene, so there is, the lighting is actually coming from these kind of like lights here. The lighting is coming from here, right? The lighting here is coming from these here. So that's taking all that into consideration to light your scene at night. And that's just a skill you will learn as you progress, right? Early on, I didn't know how to do any of this, right? It's just something you learn as you progress. You start to watch more YouTube tutorials. You start to actually go and pay for courses or pay for products or tutorials that are actually going to help you to invest in yourself. Then you're going to learn these skills the more you practice. So in terms of creating outdoor scenes under different weather conditions, that's what that one is, right? That's what that is in terms of doing that, and that's using 2 or 3 scenes. Kit bashing, right, is going to help you with that. So on to number 7, portray superpowers involving elements such as fire, water, electricity, energy ball, beams, etc., etc. So yes, as you would expect, some people like to do that, right? They like to have these beams and fire, water, electricity, energy balls, beams, right? Kind of reminds me of this phrase. Kind of reminds me of Dragon Ball Z with the Goku and Kamehameha and all that kind of cool stuff and the stuff in Dragon Ball Z, right? Because it's kind of similar to that. What you're kind of asking for, energy balls and beams and things like that, which you do find a lot in Dragon Ball Z. But yes, you can do that. So this is a case of you will need to buy props, right, for this, unless you have the ability to create them yourself. These are all available in the Daz Studio store. So inside the Daz Studio store, I've just typed in the word hero, right, in the search bar here. And these are all the ones, right? Hero kind of based props, okay? So kind of like they used the hero based props. So even like here, right? Superhero super suit here. Got here like all these effects, okay? Lightning cosmetics, okay? There's loads and loads and loads of things here. You can go through and have a look at that. Energy balls, flames here, right? All these things are here in the Daz 3D store. I don't have many of these, right? I don't think I've got any of these because my graphic novel does not really use these kind of... It's not a traditional superhero fireballs, beams, Dragon Ball Z type kind of story, right? It's a different kind of story in terms of, we're not really doing a lot of these effects yet, like these, okay? Maybe in future stories they will have these kind of effects, but right now it's not that kind of story. It's more based on the actual meaning of the story and things like that. So as you can see, there's loads, right? There's loads and loads and loads. You can go forever and ever and ever. So to answer your question for number 7, yes, you can have fire beams and whatever you want. You can also use like Photoshop or GIMP or any other photo editing software to apply that in post work. Absolutely fine. You can do that as well. You don't need to purchase these if you don't want to. As long as your lighting is correct in the Daz Studio, and then you take that into your favorite photo editing software and add those effects. Yes, you can do that as well. That's not a problem. You can do that as well. Yeah. So there's 2 ways for you to do that. Number 1, buy the props, put them into Daz Studio, do your render, and then away you go. Or number 2 is go into your favorite photo editing software and just apply those effects using your favorite photo editing software if you have those skills or if you have those brushes or whatever, right? On to number 8 now. Add non-human 3D characters or models to a scene, such as animals, dragons, creatures with anthropomorphic characteristics, aliens, etc. Yes, you can. There are lots of characters that are non-human that are available in the Daz 3D store and other stores, which will give you the ability to do that. So if we go to the Daz 3D store here and you just look at animals and creatures category here, you will see there's loads, right? There's lots and lots. And then you can go into particular categories in even more: dinosaurs, animals, fantasy. We've got animals, for example, to go to that category even more. So there are some animals here. All different types, right? There's quite a huge variety of that inside the Daz 3D store now. There wasn't before. So I started Daz Studio in 2018. We're now in 2021. 2018, December 2018 I started, right? So now we're in nearly end of November here as I'm recording this. So that's nearly 3 years. So a lot has happened in 3 years. So yes, a lot's changed. There's a lot more variety available for you here. One of the good things is that if you do purchase a character that is non-human, so for example, if you did purchase a character that is non-human, such as this, we'll say for example this one, Oni character, right? This character here, what you can do is you can actually use some of the morphs here, so to create like a unique character. And I went through how to do that in I think it's Kit Bashing for Characters Part 1. Kit Bashing Characters Part 1, I think it is. I'll put the link card here to the top right. Check that out. That's going to help you out a lot. Just basically is a great overview in terms of what is possible in terms of creating unique characters. That's one of the things you need to look at as well, is creating your own IP. A lot of people don't take that into consideration because they don't think or believe their comic or graphic novel is going to blow up, right? You've got to have that belief, almost like blind faith, that whatever story you're creating, it's going to be huge, right? That's how I want you to think about this when you're creating your stories. Think about it's going to be huge. So therefore, if I set the groundwork to begin with, creating original characters in terms of the way they look, using the morphs, doing kit bashing, it's going to hold me in good stead. And then when your graphic novel does become really great, right, becomes famous, right, you won't get any like people coming at you saying, hey, that's my thing, I want 10% of this, I'm gonna take you to court, or all that kind of stuff, right? So you gotta like think about that seriously. It may happen, right? You've gotta take that into consideration. You don't want to be like, oh, I wish I did it earlier, I want to have all these lawsuits, right? So you need to take that into consideration, and something worth considering when you're starting your graphic novel, your comic, your visual narrative, is have those unique characters, and this is really important when it comes to that. Morphing is very important when it comes to that. So yes, there's lots of characters. Dragons, I think, was one of the options you said in there. Dragons is really good category because there are a lot of dragons. Inside Daz Studio, there's loads, right? Dragons are like a big thing in Daz 3D because it's very fantasy orientated software. So yes, worth checking out, definitely. So yes, you can go back to that question there. Add non-human characters to yes, you can. There are many. Go through the store, pick what you like, and off you go, basically. So I do have some bonus content which I want to go through right now, but before we get to that, I just want to answer this question here, or this phrase, this statement here. I just want to clarify this, give you as much information as possible so you can make the right decision if you want to use Daz Studio to create comics or graphic novels. And then, basically I'm guiding you, I'm showing you the path. You are the person who has to walk it, okay? So that's the way it is in life. We can only show you the path. And then it's up to you if you wish to decide to walk that path and then on that journey. So let's go into the sentence very quickly. If Daz Studio can do all of these things, meaning the above, and I'm able to find tutorials on how to do them, then I'd be a lot more confident using Daz Studio to create my own comic or graphic novel. I haven't been able to find many tutorials on what I'm looking for though, so I think that maybe Daz Studio limited in creating scenes for comics. Okay, so let me just clarify this kind of statement you said here, or this phrase. You're unable to find tutorials. So if there are no tutorials like specifically regarding these, then that's something I need to look into. Obviously I haven't been doing a good job because that's what this channel was supposed to do, was to answer specific questions. And obviously I kind of focus more on like skills of Daz Studio, like the skills that I've learned and those skills that I know to be true because I've practiced them many times. And then I will share that knowledge. Obviously I need to be doing a better job then because I haven't answered all these questions that well. Otherwise you wouldn't have all these questions regarding comics or graphic novels. So fair enough. And in terms of tutorials, if you can't find it, like I said, on YouTube, then probably look at people's channels, and they have like Patreon accounts, or they have like whatever accounts, memberships, platforms, whatever they have, right? And you're going to have to sign up to those, right? Because that's where the content's going to be. That's where you're going to have to pay for the content because, people have worked very hard to acquire those skills, learn these things. And, if you are committed to creating your comic or graphic novel, then you have to invest in yourself and pay for that. And that's up to you, right? I can't say, yes, go and pay for whatever. That's up to you. A decision you have to make, and whether you're committed to it or not. So again, tutorials. One of the other places you can look at is the Daz 3D store, and the two tutorials that I will recommend for this section are these ones here: Comic Book Creation Foundation Course Part 1 and 2. before I created Tiger Dragon the Rebirth first edition, I was like, I was just like you, right? I wasn't confident with creating a narrative whatsoever. So I basically went through these courses, part 1 and part 2. That gave me the confidence to go and create the first edition. And then through that experience of creating the first edition, I was able to create the second edition and do a better job of that story. So that's how that's what I recommend. So invest in these two. They're going to help you out. These are definitely going to help you out with your confidence issues and your questions that you want answering there. And then the kind of second half of that was you're thinking Daz Studio is limited in creating scenes for comics. My thoughts on that word limited is you want to change that word limited to constraints. And what I mean by constraints is when you have constraints to work by, that actually is helpful and not a hindrance. And what I mean by that is when you have constraints, that's where innovation comes in. That's where something unique happens. Because if you have too many options, you're unlikely to have clarity, and that's where you get overwhelmed. It's, for example, a great analogy is if you go into an ice cream store, what do they have in America? Is it Baskin and Robbins, or I don't know, like an ice cream store, right? And you've got 22 different flavors of ice cream, and you got to decide on which ice cream you want to eat. It's going to take you a while to decide, right? There's going to be 22 different flavors. Now, if I take you into another ice cream store that's only got 2 types of flavors, you're going to make a decision pretty quickly, right? Because there's less choice. There's less choice, and it's not overwhelming. It's just option A or option B, right? And that's what I mean by constraints. So having constraints in your creative process is good. It gives you clarity. It gives you something to define and shoot for, right? So this word limited, I would change to constraints. So Daz Studio has constraints for creating scenes. This has constraints, right? Tiger Dragon Rebirth has constraints. But within those constraints is where you create the beautiful stories that you want to create. So that's going to help you there. All right, so moving on to the bonus sections, which is going to be the question you probably will be asking is, well, if I'm creating my graphic novel, visual narrative in Daz Studio, it doesn't look like a traditional comic book, right? A traditional comic book with your standard line art and the way a traditional comic book would look in terms of the colors, etc., right? And my question would be for you is, why do you want it to look like everybody else's? Why do you want to look like everybody else's? Because if it looks like everybody else's, it's just going to blend in. You don't want it to blend in. You want it to stand out. And the way it's going to stand out is if you create your own style, right? So create your own style. Now that will happen through discovery. That's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen by you trying different things and finding something that you like and then sticking with it. And that's where, again, innovation happens. So think about that. Think about, you don't need to copy what everyone else is doing. It's a case of, do you want your story to stand out? Yes or no? Then it should not look like everybody else's, right? It should definitely not look like everybody else's. And that's where you need to think about, right? So don't be like, oh, it doesn't look like a traditional, because that's what I was thinking, right? When I was creating Tiger Dragon, the Rebirth, I was like, it needs to look like a traditional one. I'm not too sure it's going to work. And, I decided, I was like, no, I don't want it to look like a traditional comic book. I don't want it to look like a Marvel, DC, Image Comics or whatever, right? Comics, whatever's out there, right? A manga cartoon, a manga comic or whatever, right? I don't want it to look like that. I want it to look like this, and that's how it's going to stand out. Because I know the story is the backbone. So the way it's all structured and everything, that's the way I want it to be. So that is the decision you have to make. I highly recommend you find your own style, one that you like, and go with it, right? And eventually people will jump on board because they will see it for what it is, which is not just for style, but for substance. And that's very, very important when it comes to creating your graphic novel, your visual narrative, your comic. So moving on to bonus number 2, and that is the story.
So let's say you've taken all these things into consideration, like you've gone through this and said, all right, I know how to do 1 to 8, and I've done the tutorials, I've got more confident to create my graphic novel. These like things are not going to mean anything, because your story is the foundation of your comic book or graphic novel. If your story is not good enough, these 8 things here are not going to help whatsoever. These 8 things are supposed to enhance that story. That's what they're there to do, right? They're there to enhance it. And so telling the story is the most important thing, and you should be focusing on that, really. These 8 things are going to help you to enhance that story, to tell the story. So storytelling is very, very important. It's like how we bond with each other. It is how we create connections, stories. Chances are your best friends are the ones you just sat around talking to each other about past stories you had, right? That's how you become friends with people. You have a story, you listen, you connect, you bond, and then maybe someone else tells a story. Storytelling is like built into our DNA. Back in cave people days, we're there and we're just sitting in a fire. There's no iPhone, there's no iPads, right? You're sitting in a cave, there's a fire, and you're literally like telling a story, right? To, create that connection, and obviously, to impart wisdom as well. So you don't get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger back in the cave person days. So, storytelling is very, very important. And you should really focus on that. So a great example of this is if I show you Tiger Dragon the Rebirth first edition, right? The story is not that good in the beginning, right? So I changed in the beginning the story. This was like, some of these are reused panels, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I think this panel is reused. So it's not very good in terms of the story and everything. And then the second edition is far superior, because I went back to the story and I was like, what would make more sense is this. So story is the foundation of your comic book, graphic novel, visual narrative. It's very important. And then the other 8 items that we discussed here are just going to add to that and make it a better experience, basically, for whoever is reading your story. And finally, bonus number 3 is you got to believe in yourself, right? You're creating this story, so you've got to believe in your ability to get it done. You've got to put in the time, effort, and energy to create your story, all right? Because you are wearing all the hats. You are the artist. You are doing the dialogue, right? You are doing the marketing. You're wearing all these hats, okay? You are doing the writing of the story, obviously. So there's a lot of things you have to do. It does become overwhelming sometimes. It may take a little longer for you to create your story. That's absolutely fine, right? The most important thing is that you believe in yourself and get it done. And that's a huge mindset shift required, because there are times where you feel like giving up. I know certainly I did. I certainly felt like giving up many times, and I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, and I was able to create Tiger Dragon the Rebirth first edition and second edition, right? So this is it, right? You just keep going and know that you can do it. That's very, very important. And one of the stories that I like, that I always kind of like reference, is the J.K. Rowling story with Harry Potter, where her manuscript was rejected 12 times by different publishers, all right? So she went to a publisher and they said, no, this story is not good enough, we don't want it, right? 12 publishers, right? Big publishers said no. She could have easily quit. And if she quitted, then there would not be no Harry Potter. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, that would not exist, right? I'm not a Harry Potter fan. You might be a Harry Potter fan. My sister is a Harry Potter fan, right? So imagine if Harry Potter wasn't there, her life would have been very different, right? There you go, right? It makes a big difference, right? These things make a big difference. The belief makes a big difference. So she believed, J.K. Rowling believed that her story was good enough, Harry Potter, and it will do big things. And it did, right? And she had the success. That's all the more reason for you to have that success as well. It is possible. If there's a slight chance, even if there's like a 10% chance of your story becoming super successful, take it, right? Grab it with both hands. Even if it's like 1%, grab it with both hands, right? It doesn't matter. There's still a chance, right? There's always a chance for you to create an amazing story. That's always possible. So there you go. You must believe in that. Believe in yourself. Believe in your ability to get it done, and you will be better for it. Trust me. And then the next story, right, will be so much better. And then one after that will be better, right? And just think about in 5 years time, 10 years time, where you're going to be. You're going to be in a much better place as well, because you're going to be creating those stories you love. So if you want to support the channel, YouTube channel, I have a wonderful story here, Tiger Dragon of the Rebirth. Fantastic, meaningful superhero story here, an alternative story to what Marvel and DC are creating, or any other, comic book creators creating. It's an alternative superhero story. If you want a meaningful superhero story that is based like on Eastern mythology, right? In a different context, because obviously, I have a different context to everything. Everybody has a different context to everything. If you're interested in that, then this story is for you. Trust me, you will not regret it. It's a fantastic story. So you can support here. You can choose which option you want to choose. Also have a membership platform now as well. Ko-fi.com/PalmyBaden is there. You can do a one-time donation if you want to. Fantastic. Please support the channel. And also I've got membership here, Little Tiger. Now with the Little Tiger membership, I have added a couple of extras this week recently, which is the underwater and the overwater thumbnails, the scenes. So those thumbnails that you see in the YouTube, I've actually given you that, right? So meaning I give you the settings. So these are basically the scenes. All right, as you would download a scene from the Daz 3D store. If you purchase a scene, it's the exact same thing. You would copy those folders into your Daz 3D library, and you can load them, and you can see the exact settings that I've used to create this scene, so you can learn from them, right? You can see like, oh, he's put a bay 55 or something, right? And why has he done that? Or why is the lighting for this where is the lighting coming from this to give this shiny effect for the water, right? So, and how did he get that, right? What did he do? So these are all the things you can look at in order for you to learn, so you can improve your skills as well. So this is going to help you as well. So that's 2 ways you can support the channel. If you want to support the channel there, if you want to further your learning, if you're committed to mastery, this is for you. And having said that, don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. Leave a comment down below. If you have any comments regarding this video, leave it down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more videos. And don't forget that if you want to live a dream life, you must commit to mastery. And I'll see you all in next week's video.